That's the puzzle in there. So this is where we're working on a game with many puzzles for students to think, critical thinking, logic. They don't like to be able to use some of the things, but they like games. So I'm actually having a game designed on the phone so they can bring their phones to class, and we can play this game and have them learn through this evil device. It's no longer evil. It's now, if you can't beat them, use it as a tool. And so instead of them texting, usually the person's sitting right next to them, right? Crazy. That now I will use this for polls, for questions, for research, for games. And I use games to teach. Thank you, Pete. I never know what I'm going to do. I'm sorry, it's one of those weird things. Okay, so there's the Twitter. And again, this is my Twitter account. I have a Twitter account just for me, Dr. Lentz, and then one just for school. So I will have, and these are actually my announcements. Welcome to week 3. Thanks for signing up for your 8006 announcements using Twitter. Not every student. I'd say about 80% like Facebook, 50% like Twitter. I can't require everyone, but I guarantee you when they're at work, they get announcements via their phone instead of having to log on to their computer. Now they don't have messages from you. Some students think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Me, I had to learn. Am I a fan of Twitter? I do it because my students do it. Do I like it personally? All right, here are the announcements. See, this is one of my students in there. Hi, Doxy, great, tons of useful information. Better now that I get them in my Twitter feed. Because they're already there on Facebook and Twitter, now Dr. C is there too, and reminding them, go to school, go to school. So, all right, here's what I wanted to know. My director asked me, Cheryl, how do you know this works? I'm like, well, I can tell them I think their papers are better. Instead of normal classes, their engagement, how many people post in my classroom? I would get on average 20 to 30. When I use these techniques, 150. A little bit more work for teacher, but it's okay. But here is the things that I gave them do you know SurveyMonkey? Is that SurveyMonkey, okay? So I gave them a short survey in SurveyMonkey. 3 questions of male, female, what class, what level, and then 7 questions. You will see here, these are about, do you look at animation videos, avatars, blogs, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, my video, and then others. Look what wins. The videos, hands down, that I was just questioning. Okay. Amazed, going, wow. So now, and with analytics, I can see where my students go. I can see what videos they're watching, how long they're watching them, and then I see their papers at the end of the week and their things in classroom. Usually by week 2, very dramatic improvements. Amazing. And they see it too. 72%. Yes, these technologies improve my writing. Mastery of APA formats. Do you use APA?
No.
No, okay. Canada uses Chicago style. Another university uses MLA, but it's just rules on how they write the game. Technology motivated me. Check this out. Oops. Go back. 80% motivated me. Wow. I knew it was high, but I didn't think it was that high. And then helped me overcome my fear or anxiety. I know some of my students, the ages of my students can be 28 to 70. My older students, much more afraid. But here's a secret. For those who have older students, just like my parents, don't tell them I said this. You get to those students to their grandchildren. My parents would not go on Facebook and Twitter and think for me. They would for their grandchildren. Their grandchildren, their grandbabies who are, I don't know, 15, 16. They want to post pictures of trips, things from college. The only way my parents could see them is if they had Facebook. So my nieces and nephews were able to get my parents online where I failed because they wanted to entertain them. And now my dad and my mom, and oh my gosh, it's amazing the things that they do. And they wouldn't initially. They saw her. Okay, it took me a long time just to get my dad to get a cell phone. Now, because of the grandkids, I can tweet my father from this phone today, right now in front of you, 6,000 miles away. My father just turned 75. I would have never believed it, because I'm never going to use a cell phone. He can do videos from the cell phone. My father can do it, you can do it. So here's the idea. Online videos of all the things I do, much more common. Social media is the next, but 80%, check this out, 80%, some form of social media in some way in the United States. It's amazing. It's believed to add value to teaching, to be able to collaborate to help students. My colleague and I, Dr. Julie Descharmes, in the end of October, we're applying for a grant for Walden University for $10,000 so that we can actually do official research for this. This is only unofficial research in my classroom for assessment purposes. We're actually applying for grant money because we want to prove it to all of our colleagues at Works. And we've been doing this for years, and we're a little bit avant-garde, a little different. Everybody's kind of watching us to see what we're doing. We're having some great success, and the students who come in our class are very disappointed when they go to other faculty classes who don't do some of this. So I guess I should say I'm sorry, but I'm not. The students are really making sure some of this, but we have to teach them. Many businesses in the United States want their students, graduates that they hire as future employees, to know proper manners. Not everyone knows how because of Twitter. They need to know that you have to be careful on what you say and how you say it. Slang is very difficult, I know, when you're teaching as English teachers to try and teach culture and slang. You have to teach manners. And it's really amazing that they have to learn how to be polite. Sometimes, particularly in Facebook, that there are things that shouldn't be on Facebook. And unfortunately, many students are struggling because what goes on Facebook stays on Facebook. Students and graduates are losing jobs because they're putting inappropriate materials online. I have tried to teach my stepdaughter, not having much success. She's 23. She knows everything. Do you have anyone like that? 23? They know everything. And she is very dark. She puts all of her thoughts online. And it can be very discouraging to a future employer. And you can't erase Facebook. You cannot take pictures down. Even if you take them off your Facebook page, somebody else might have them. Somebody else might share them. There are things from my rescue work back in 1998 still circling. So the hard part is I have many of my doctoral students right now doing research on, because we don't have laws in the United States yet about social media. They're coming. And what employers can do. Because some employers are wondering, and I think it's going to go through the court system here very soon, is if somebody loses a job that they don't know about because of something they had in their Facebook, it's going to be tested in their legal system. Because if you have somebody that comes to you in an interview and they're all dressed up and they have wonderful resume or CV if they're doing academia, yet you see some very not so nice pictures on Facebook, would you want to hire them? I know some employers say no. I know some employers that, oh, I'm homesick today. They go to the baseball game. And they post pictures on Facebook and see no one else can see. Not a good idea. And they get fired or suspended from their jobs. So there are a lot of things that your students have to be warned about. And I don't think many of them think, because they're 20. When they have a job when they're 30, that Facebook page will still be there. And so we have to, this is what a lot of administrators and things are a little bit afraid of. Just because we can, doesn't mean we should. And so we have to use these as tools in our arsenal with everything that we do, but to teach them judiciously. Because some students, they don't quite have the maturity yet to understand the power that social media has, particularly for their future. So here again, we talked about some of the Facebook in there, but some of the things that you have on your Facebook, what I do is you can create groups and you can make them private, so no one else can see except for me in my classroom. It's called a secret private group in Facebook. That's how I can do what I do to make sure that the students have to create this, and I keep it, and no, it doesn't go on regular Facebook. So it helps with privacy, because I know we have FERPA laws and all types of other things as well. And that's it. Ta-da, ta-da. And I want to see if I can do that. So I know this is Dziękuję za przybycie. Oh, I'm sorry, I want to try this. Do you have any questions? I'd love to be able to teach. I know this is rather quick because it's only a survey. Yeah. But there's so much that's out there that I want you to have some possibility of what I can do to be able to help you. Even if you just pick one thing that you try to have the ability to help in your classes, even if you're in the classroom right now. Technology isn't going away. Your students are going to be asking for it. And And that's one of those that we either change or we have someone under that will, and that's not easy. So I'm willing to help, but again, please.
Actually, I have a question about the blog, because you said you can reuse it, like, in a way, but like nobody's going to read something that you wrote in 2011. So do you like use tags? Like, how do you make it user friendly?
When I have my blog in there, on the bottom of it will have the tags like you mentioned in there. Here's the topics. I'll put 3 or 4, and then I have them under a category on the blog. Things about marketing, things about teaching, things about dissertations, etc. And then when I do for my students, you're right, they don't always look through everything, but I know what I had. And I can find that exact link. My diversity class, we had a specific post on diversity. I will go back and I have a search that I can quickly find it, and then I will take just that link and post it in my classroom. I just did a blog on procrastination, same thing, because I know they won't always look for it. So I will post the YouTube video link and then that blog link specific. So again, I want to make it user-friendly so they don't have to, because there's at least 300 blog posts that are there now, so that I will put out there. But then I also encourage my students to use the search function of whatever topics that might be there to help them with whatever they might need.
And what about the tapes? Sorry.
That's okay, no.
I saw that on your, I don't know if it was YouTube or somewhere else, where you, I saw that there were tape scripts, but like,
Yes.
is there a tool, or do you, please don't tell me you do it yourself.
Well, I used to. When I first started, January 2011, I actually wrote out a script. And I actually read it word for word. Don't do that, your students hate that. But that's how I started. And so this way I would take the script, became the blog. The video I would read became here. Now YouTube's amazing. YouTube will now take that video and it'll transcribe it for you. However, you know, autocorrect, sometimes what you say and what it says you said, not the same.
And it's the same with subtitles.
Exactly,
yeah.
and you're like, oh, that's not what I intended to say. So it's safer if you have some kind of a script. And again, the script becomes the blog. And then you can at least, not as if you're reading, because I didn't read anything up here. But I know you have students that will stand up here and just, you know, read, and it's just not very exciting. So don't read the script, but just kind of paraphrase it. I usually put it on the wall as I'm taping, so it just keeps me on track. You read my first ones? They're still up there, but I read them word for word. It was really bad. So the professor has to learn too, right? But that is something helpful. So I think as we get better, in maybe 4 years, you won't have to do the transcripts because the technology will be much better. For now, oh, it's just a window. Okay, guess we're done. So yeah, it's a very good question. So technology will continue to change. So I think we're in a place where you may have to do it for now, but probably not forever. And even the Braille and the, for deaf students, can pick up those transcripts and then they can hear it. So I think it'll be very cool going forward. So thank you. I saw the question.
Just about like document sharing, because I create like vocabulary, like one list of vocabulary in my classes.
Okay.
And I was just uploading it to Drive.
Right.
Emailing the students the Drive link.
Oh, Google Docs.
Basically,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And I use Dropbox myself. But
Oh, okay, Dropbox
the
is
Dropbox
good,
you need to
right?
have the application, I think. Is there
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, you're right. Google Docs is in the cloud. Dropbox, you have to program.
So is there a better way to share it with the students, or do you think Google Docs is? It's okay, but it's not. It's not quite what I need it.
Exactly, and I would keep looking because there's so many free programs out there. That's why I do so many ways. If I have documents to share with my students, I try to do the rule of 3. Everything I do at least 3 times. I will send it via email as the attachment. I will post it in the blog that we have in the classroom, and then I will post it in a link in somewhere externally. But you have to be careful. I don't know what the privacy is when it comes to the university, if it's okay to have your information out there publicly, or you only want your students to have it. Those are some of the questions you're going to have to address, because Google Docs has a password only, so does Dropbox, and then you can control it for only 12, 15, whatever your students are this term, and then again next term. Some of these other things, everybody could see them. And maybe that's not a concern. Some people care, some don't, but there are...
The students were, they said, I emailed them the list after about a month of classes, and I said, okay, update it yourself. I print it or whatever, and you're responsible to update it. And one of my students said, well, why don't you just do it and send it to us? And I said, well, because I'm not gonna send you an email every week. Because I don't
Well,
want to
Google
basically.
Docs could do that, and see, I'm not a fan of Google Docs, but I know many faculty are just for that working. You have everybody in this class has access to Google Docs.
And they can update
And
it.
everybody can update it all the time, so you always have a living, breathing document that's always updated, whether it's by anyone in the class or students, anybody, anytime, if it works. That's the problem that I had. I had trouble with Google Docs from day one. I don't know if it's my laptops, I have several computers, I struggle with it. Other people think it's the greatest thing ever. I think technology is going to get easier as we go forward, and there's going to be many solutions that many people, I would actually Google online and ask. I found some people in Italy, and Simon in Spain. They're doing some amazing things that we don't even have in the United States, which is why I try to do internationally. I think everybody has amazing ways to be able to tell me, well, how do you solve this problem? And we're all educators trying to come to the same conclusion. And when you hear some of these techniques, you're like, oh, I would have never thought of that. I learned a new thing on Facebook the other day. I'm just trying in my classes now. I hesitate to share because it's pretty complicated, but our goal is to get students to prepare them for their jobs, yes? And so we want to give them experience in the classroom now that future employers can see. So one of the faculty, and this was just literally 2 weeks ago at Embry-Riddle University, he was using Facebook, but instead of Facebook as a page where we all talk, each student had their own Facebook page for their project, so that they could do their project. So you had, say, a term paper through the 8 weeks, 10 weeks for your classes? 10 weeks, okay. Over 10 weeks, but you have it on Facebook. And so now when a student is done, they have their page on Facebook that they could give a link to an employer, have a portfolio, have something to demonstrate to an employer in an interview what they did in your class. I was amazed. That was brilliant. Because we want to show your employers examples from your class. How can they speak well? How can they write well? And so that you can give them, so not just show